Using the power of the internet, you can now watch GLC on any TV in the US, Canada, the UK, and Ireland with Roku. Basically, a box that connects to your television. Roku acts as a middleman between your internet connection and your television. So if you have internet service at your home, chances are high that you can watch all of the great GLC programming. And best of all, it's highly affordable too, with only a one-time fee ranging from $50 to $100. Log on to our website, www.glc.us.com, for details on how you can watch GLC via Roku.
Well, welcome to the weekend Friday edition of Update News. Hello, Dr. Bodge.
Hello, Amy Cooper. Can you believe it's Friday already?
I'm thanking God it's Friday because we've got a 3-day weekend, and I know our entire team is saying that very thing. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Everyone's speaking Hebrew today.
That's right.
What do we have?
Well, we got a lot of news. We have a video from Doron, Keidar today, and we have the weekend lineup first.
Great.
Ha, 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 ha. Okay, now what that says is that it's Adi Zahavi and Ken Kleiman. That's only the first hour. The second hour is actually an interview that I did in Jerusalem with Ashley Perry. And this was 3 years ago, but yet it is still pertinent today. It's amazing. Anyway, you want to catch that program. It'll air tonight at 8 o'clock. It'll air Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock. And Sunday at 1 a.m. Oh.
That was a very interesting show.
It's very interesting, but it was kind of gross, really. Even our editor shaking his head, yes, it was kind of gross. Yeah. It's on parasites, and it's like really interesting. Anyway, Saturday, 1 a.m., Saturday evening at 8 p.m., Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m., and Monday morning at 7. That'll give you a lot of opportunities to hear about that.
And I noticed that you stayed away from dinner time when you put that on, which was very wise based on the content.
We don't really air at dinner time, but, you know. And Joe McGee, Saturday, 5 a.m., Sunday at 8 p.m. That particular program, he had just returned from his very first trip to Israel. So Joe's always funny. And then Dr. Marvin Wilson. And if I remember correctly, this is the first time that Dr. Wilson ever came to GLC. I was never able to meet him.
People really need to watch that one. He's one of the most brilliant minds of our time.
Sunday 5 a.m., Monday 1 a.m., and Monday at 2 p.m. And remember, too, that you can always view any of these programs for 1 week in our website archives. From the time they start airing until 1 week later, they will be in the archives, and you can see them there.
Very good.
We're getting good response on that GLC radio.
We really are. People love it. The guys have done a great job with that.
Well, we are starting a brand new thing in about 2 seconds. Corey put this, it's a green screen deal. He put his head together with Jenny at the bookstore, I think.
Oh, great.
And they came up with a new backdrop because Jenny wants to really let people know what's going on in the bookstore. And, you know, she lived for a couple of years over in Israel, so she's got a real understanding of some things that are very, very helpful to people. That's why everybody loves talking to her.
Right.
Anyway, check this out. We'll be back with you right after this.
Hey everyone, welcome to the GLC Buzz. Each week we're going to bring you announcements about what's going on around GLC and let you know more about specials and items in the bookstore. All right, so we've made it to the Hebrew month of Elul. This is personally my favorite time of year. The next few weeks are traditionally set aside as a time of repentance and spiritual renewal as we get ready for Rosh Hashanah, God's New Year. All right, so in honor of this special time, we are offering 30% off all DVD series and seasons. This includes titles like What Every Christian Should Know About Islam by Manny Irfan, The 10 Commandments with Brad Young, and some of your favorites, such as Digging the Truth, Rock Shovels and Manuscripts, Shepherd's Heart, and many more. Just check out the website or give us a call for more information about that. We have some excellent book titles that you should check out for this month as we get ready to move into Rosh Hashanah. This one from our friends at ArtScroll, titled Rosh Hashanah, Its Laws, Prayers, and Customs. This is full of Talmudic commentary, and it's a great one for those of you who are into the rabbinic thought. It's hardbound with beautiful Hebrew artwork on the cover. Celebrating biblical feast in your home or church. This is great for anyone and everyone, but would be an excellent gift for your congregational leaders. Okay, Celebrating Jesus in the Biblical Feast by our beloved Dr. Richard Booker. I love this one because Dr. Booker does an excellent job of explaining the feast and why they're relevant to our life today. This is a great choice for a church Bible study or home group. Please consider any of these for yourself or as gifts for your friends, family, pastor, or rabbi. Okay, calendars will be here next week. Praise God, Baruch Hashem. We are highly anticipating their arrival, and I know you are too because I've had so many calls about them, so I'll let you know more about that next week once they're in. I hope you've been tuning into GLC Radio this week from your smartphone or computer because I have, and I know my grandmother has been tuning in on her iPhone, so that's very exciting. Please give us a call or check out the website if you have any questions about how to access it. Thank you so much for supporting us. Thank you so much for supporting the bookstore. We hope you have a great weekend, however you spend the Sabbath, whether it's at home, at church on Sunday, or synagogue on Saturday. We hope that you will enter into his rest and that his spirit will minister truth to you and your family. Shabbat Shalom.
I am way impressed.
The GLC Buzz. I love it.
I know
That's great.
these guys. We have the greatest team, Rick.
I know.
You know.
We don't even need to be here. Just let them do everything.
No, I still have to spell check stuff.
Okay.
They have spell checkers on their computers, but they don't care about spelling, so they don't check it. Okay, we're going to go right to that video from Doron Keidar. He's in Stockholm, Sweden, and he has a guest with him on this one, so we'll be back in about 10 minutes.
Hi, this is Doron Keidar. Welcome again to another update about what's going on in Israel. As you can see behind me, I'm not exactly in Israel right now. We're actually in Stockholm, Sweden. I'm here with a good friend of mine. Just to introduce him real quick, his name is Jonathan, and he's going to go ahead and explain the initiative that he's doing. But meanwhile, I want to give a quick update about what's happening in the land of Israel, or actually what's happening in the land of Israel and surrounding the land of Israel. As you know, the terrorists and Hamas and the Hezbollah have been firing from both the northern border and Gaza. What you haven't heard on the international media is probably the fire that's come in from Lebanon. But just recently, the Hezbollah have fired from Lebanon into Israel, and Israel made an airstrike into Lebanon in response. So, in other words, the border is heating up on the north. The Hezbollah want to join their brothers in arms in the Gaza Strip, which is the Hamas. And as you heard me talk about earlier, Hamas and ISIS and Al-Qaeda, these are all the same people. They all have the same agenda, the same ideology, and that is the destruction of Israel, the destruction of the West, the destruction of anyone who is free from Islamic rule, and to put and submit the world under Islamic rule. And this is what we'll be talking about today. What's happening in the Middle East today is that the only place in all of the Middle East that is safe for Christians is actually Israel. The Israeli state is the only state in the Middle East, the only country in the Middle East where Christians have freedom from Islamic terror and the reign of terror that is happening. Children are being beheaded in Syria, in Iraq, all over. They're being beheaded. Children, little children, I'm talking about 4-year-olds, that are being beheaded because they're Christians. Their parents are being butchered in front of their eyes before they're murdered and butchered and killed. The women are being taken as concubines by these Muslims after they butcher and murder their husbands and their children. This is what's happening right now due to ISIS, the Islamic State movement in the Middle East. These are horrible movement of terrorists. They are Muslim fundamentalists, and in fact, in reality, what they are the ones who are living Islam in the true sense of what Islam really represents. And this is what we're trying to discuss. Jonathan is going to discuss this about the initiative that we're going to try to bring here to Sweden, bring this awareness about the Islamic agenda and how it's targeting Christians all over the world, and mainly targeting the Christians living in the Muslim countries like Iraq, like Syria, like Lebanon, Egypt. The Egyptian Coptic Christians have been going through such torment. It is unmentionable. There are things that I can't even mention because it's too graphic. It's too graphic for our viewers to even hear the type of butchering that is happening to these poor people. So there are people that need to speak up. As you know, what I try to do is I'm trying to speak up. I'm trying to be a voice and a witness, and trying to awaken people in the nations, awaken people in the United States, because this threat is not just in the Middle East, but it's also coming to you. It's right in your backyard. There was, just recently now, there was a Muslim from the United States, actually from Minnesota. Would you imagine, of all states in America, from Minnesota, yes, Minnesota, 33-year-old. His name was, I forget his first name, but it was a McCain, and he was sent to Syria to fight for ISIS and was actually killed in the fighting. And this is one of the names that has popped up of the Westerners that have joined the Islamic revolution that is happening in the Middle East. We have another guy who is actually from London, who is a famous rapper, or I don't know if he was necessarily famous, but he was a rapper from London, and he was the one who just recently was the one who probably carried out the beheading of the American reporter, as you guys know, James Foley. He was the one that's been probably viewed all over the world now, and unfortunately, there are many reporters like this that you don't even hear of their names. You don't even hear about what's happening to them. They are living in fear as they are trying to report from the Middle East of what's happening. And as some of you probably have heard, the ones who have tried to, for example, cover the conflict that has happened now in Israel, the ones who've been on the Gaza Strip, they have been under extreme supervision of Hamas, and Hamas has gone out and has actually even they had no problem saying, yes, that's right, we make sure that whatever comes out of here is supervised under the Hamas rule, because they're in Gaza and we're the ones that are ruling here. So they're not even trying to hide it. So this is what's happening in the Middle East, and I want to go to Jonathan now and to talk about the initiative and what he is trying to set up here in Sweden. Jonathan, would you please tell the viewers in the United States about the initiative and how they can maybe even help support this initiative?
Absolutely. First and foremost, to the viewers of this channel, I appreciate that Doron made a time to actually promote the current situation in the Middle East, not only from a Jewish, neither from a Christian perspective. We need to emphasize the critical necessity that the world community should be aware of what's going on in the Middle East. Basically, I am representing the only pro-Israeli Zionist and public diplomacy organization in Scandinavia, in Sweden, Norway, Finland, and Denmark. And we have our agenda, a clear objective to create a better alliance between the Scandinavian states and the state of Israel. In this particular event, we are actually putting all of our focus and resources on the extremely horrendous, critical situation in the Middle East, where the biggest targets, actually, the most of the targets are the ancient Christian communities of Middle East. We're talking about the Arameans. We're talking about the old ancient communities that's been residing there for over 2,000 years. So basically, to keep it very short, we have our initiative is based upon the headline, the Aramean Exodus, the Christian Exodus in Middle East. And to the viewers, I would like to invite you to this extremely critical initiative, that not only we would like to make awareness about this in Scandinavia by inviting a delegation with Christian, Jewish, and Muslim leaders from Middle East, from Israel, and to give the public servants, the political leaders, and most of all the church institution, the Christian institutions of Scandinavia, a better way to get the real perception of the mass slaughtering of the Christians in the Middle East, the oppressions, the extremely crucial situation right now by inviting five extremely prominent leaders. We will, among our guests, we will invite the bishop from Bethlehem, Father Gabriel Nadav, together with one of the most prominent scholars and Christian and Jewish leaders, and of course from the Muslim side as well, prominent persons that will actually give their takes on the current situation, and most of all, what is the solution? We cannot be aware of something and not doing something towards it, so we need to find the right channel, the right platform to basically talk about this and emphasize it. And by our initiative, we will find a good platform to reach out to Scandinavian political leaders, church leaders, so they could actually make the real action ad hoc without too much political correctness and actually act upon the critical situation.
It's wonderful. So I'm very excited to partner with Jonathan and this initiative here in Sweden, because it is so important that Europe wakes up to this reality, and it is waking up. In fact, the intelligence community in Europe, Interpol, is so terrified by all of these Muslim activists who have joined the fighting in Syria, in Iraq, who hold European passports, EU passports, the European Union. Can you imagine having a European Union passport and you can freely go to and fro all throughout the European Union here in Europe, and yet you're a terrorist, you're an activist for ISIS? These people are very dangerous, and the intelligence community is waking up, and we're trying to wake up the population here in Scandinavia, and this is what we're trying to support. So this is Doron Keidar. I'm here in Stockholm, Sweden, and I just want to thank you folks for listening to the reports. God bless you.
Great report. You know, when Jonathan there was talking about these ancient Christian communities, the Arameans, and the one thing that I really want you to think about is that we read in our Bibles how the apostles went here, they went here, they went here. They established Christian communities all over the Middle East. It's those very communities that are now being wiped out.
That's right.
By the Islamic State.
Those known as the 7 churches of Asia Minor are almost completely annihilated of any Christian presence at all. This is the Aramean, the Aramaic-speaking churches now that are having to flee.
And the thing that's amazing to me is, no, we're not really hearing on our news media that it's the Christians that are being targeted. When he talks about the beheadings that they just seem to love to do, I want you to think about the video that posted like this in the past week with James Foley, the journalist, being beheaded. During that beheading, they start to cut, then the screen goes to black, and then they come back and his head is laying on top of his body. Well, these beheadings aren't quick like we think of King Henry VIII beheading his wives and chop. They're slow. They saw them off. It takes 2 minutes. So that it's brutal. It's brutal. And that's what these people are suffering. That's what they're witnessing. It's done in such a way to promote terror. And that's why they're called terrorists. Anyway, our first article today comes from foxnews.com, the Associated Press, and The Guardian. Prime Minister, the British Prime Minister, David Cameron, vowed on Friday today to confront radical Islam at home and abroad, and the United Kingdom raised its terror level to severe in the wake of new revelations about Islamic State's butchery in Syria and Iraq. Cameron, speaking from 10 Downing Street, said Britain's problem with homegrown radical jihadists joining the bloody battle engulfing the Middle East and threatening attacks on the West must be addressed with tough action. The Conservative Party leader said, "This is not some foreign conflict thousands of miles away that we can hope to ignore. The ambition to create an extremist caliphate in the heart of Iraq and Syria is a threat to our own security here in the UK. And that's in addition to the many other al-Qaeda-inspired terrorist groups that exist in that region. The first ISIL terrorist attacks on the continent of Europe have already taken place.
Cameron said plans are being developed to stop British jihadists from traveling to Syria and Iraq and to make it easier to revoke their passports. He also said the nation will work to bar current fighters from returning from the Middle East. The UK government raised its terror threat level from substantial to severe, the fourth highest of 5 levels, in response to events in Iraq and Syria. We cannot appease this ideology, Cameron said. We have to confront it at home and abroad. To do this, we need a tough, intelligent, patient, comprehensive approach to defeat the terrorist threat at its source.
Well, Cameron's words came one day after U.S. President Barack Obama said the U.S. is not contemplating imminent action against Islamic State in Syria. I don't want to put the cart before the horse. We don't have a strategy yet, Obama said on Thursday. Despite the fact that IS declared war against the U.S. in a video posting of the beheading of journalist James Foley, White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest went to great lengths on Friday to say the U.S. is not at war with the Islamic State. The Obama administration has been criticized for not addressing the issue of Islamic extremism explicitly and decisively enough.
International outrage at Islamic State continues to grow with daily reports and images of the terror group's savagery against Syrians, Iraqis, and Kurds. On Thursday, video of Islamic State fighters marching more than 100 underwear-clad Syrian soldiers in the desert before summarily executing them appeared on the internet. On Friday, Islamic State released photos of Kurdish Peshmerga soldiers captured in Iraq, one of which was beheaded.
The UN said today that the civil war in Syria has forced 3 million people out of the country, including more than 1 million who fled in the past year, creating a crisis that the UN Refugee Agency said requires the biggest operation in its 64-year history. The tragic milestone means that about 1 of every 8 Syrians has fled across the borders, and 6.5 million others have been displaced within Syria since the conflict began in March 2011. More than half of all those uprooted are children. Syria had a pre-war population of 23 million.
Well, the agency said that as the extremist Islamic State group expands its control of broad areas straddling the Syria-Iraq border and terrorizes rivals and civilians in both countries, the already desperate situation of the Syrian refugees is worsening. According to the agency, many of the new arrivals in Jordan come from Syria's northern province of Aleppo and the northeastern region of Raqqa, a stronghold of IS. An independent UN commission says the group is systematically carrying out widespread bombings, beheadings, and mass killings that amount to crimes against humanity in both areas.
On Friday, just hours after capturing 43 Fijian soldiers, Syrian rebels surrounded 75 Filipino members of a United Nations peacekeeping force in the Golan Heights and demanded they give up their weapons, authorities said. The UN peacekeepers were defending 2 UN posts on the Syrian side of the Golan Heights and were prepared to fight back rather than surrender, their commander in Manila said. Colonel Roberto Anca told reporters, "We can use deadly force in defense of the UN facilities. I would just like to emphasize our troops are well armed, they're well trained, and are well disciplined warrior peacekeepers."
On Wednesday, Syrian rebels, including fighters from the Al-Qaeda affiliate al-Nusra Front, stormed the Golan Heights crossing at Quneitra, sparking an exchange of gunfire with Israeli troops. Quneitra is the only crossing between the Syrian and the Israeli-controlled side of the strategic plateau. On Thursday, the rebels captured 43 Fijian members of the UN Disengagement Observer Force, UNDOF, forcing them to surrender their weapons and then taking them hostage.
They're busy guys, these Syrian rebels. You know, they are not good guys. And I think everybody needs to have an outpouring to our senators and congressmen
Yes.
that any funding to Syrian rebels needs to stop.
Yes.
because they are all part of this.
It really feels like things are accelerating these days.
They are accelerating. And this one comes from Fox News as well. A second American reportedly killed while fighting with the Islamic State group in Syria has been identified as Adra Rahman Muhammad of Minneapolis. Another one from Minnesota. Two sources told Fox News late Wednesday. KMSP TV in Minneapolis reported that Muhammad was killed in the same battle as Douglas MacArthur McCain, who was identified earlier this week as the first American killed while fighting with the Islamic State. McCain grew up outside Minneapolis in the town of New Hope and most recently lived in San Diego.
Well, a profile of Muhammad by Minnesota Public Radio this past June described him as a 29-year-old Somali American who had been married more than once and was a father of 9 children. NPR reported, citing the FBI, that at least 15 young men from the Twin Cities Somali American community had traveled to Syria to join Islamic State. In Facebook messages to an NPR reporter, Muhammad wrote, "I give up this worldly life for Allah, and Allah loves those who fight for his cause." A picture posted on the social network showed Muhammad carrying a Quran in one hand and a rifle in the other.
Abdi Bihi, leader in the Twin Cities Somalian community, told KMSP that ISIS has recently begun trying to recruit young women from the Twin Cities to their cause. They are brainwashing them to marry them off to the jihadists, he said. They call them to help out as nurses, help out the wounded, but the real catch is they will be sexually exploited.
Federal investigators believe that approximately 100 Americans have traveled to Syria to join Islamic groups. Most of them are disaffected young men targeted by recruitment videos like those that put out by the Somali-based al-Qaeda-linked group Al-Shabaab that praised Minnesota's martyrs. One such martyr was Troy Castigar, a high school classmate of Douglas McCain, and a Muslim convert who was killed in Somalia in 2009.
So that's probably like going to be a pretty volatile area. That's what I'm thinking.
Yes.
Okay, the next story, AFP and a Arut Sheva over in Israel. In a defiant show of force, thousands of Islamic Jihad fighters paraded in Gaza City on Friday. This is a picture taken from that. Just 3 days after a ceasefire ended Israel's defensive Operation Protective Edge. Terrorists at the march wore military fatigues and carried assault rifles and other light weaponry, with some holding aloft different types of rockets that had been fired at Israel during the 50-day conflict. Israel has repeatedly demanded the demilitarization of Gaza, both before and during the conflict, a demand that has not yet been met. More than 4,500 rockets were fired at the Jewish state during the conflict, which erupted on July the 8th.
The spokesman for Islamic Jihad's armed wing, the Al-Quds Brigades, delivered a speech at the march in which he praised its backer, Iran, and its Hezbollah allies, declaring that the group would redouble efforts to rearm. The spokesman, known as Abu Hamza, said Israel cannot win in Gaza. It is a state ready for extinction and defeat in the face of any army of our Ummah, Muslim nation. He added, "We confirm the sanctity of the weapon of resistance and our adherence to it. We have not stopped making weapons even during the battle, and we will redouble our efforts to prepare for the next stage, which we hope will be the battle for freedom."
Great. And another article from Arut Sheva, sad. The Israeli death toll from Operation Protective Edge rose to 71 on Friday morning when a 22-year-old succumbed to critical injuries received from the shrapnel of an exploding rocket. Sergeant Natanel Maman was wounded last Friday while on a weekend home leave, enjoying a short break from the defensive. The rocket fired by Hamas into Israel exploded next to Gan Yavne in the Ashdod region. Maman was left fighting for his life while hospitalized for the past week in Petah Tikva. The young soldier, who was posthumously promoted to the rank of sergeant, leaves behind his bereaved parents and 6 siblings. Shabbat Shalom. We love you. We will see you next Wednesday, I guess. Have a great long weekend.